This week at Celebrational, not only did the world get its first look at the Heavy Hitters Precons, but I actually had the chance to play with, that's right, these three of them. And I'm very, very impressed with these decks as a product, and I think they might actually be the best Blitz Precons we've seen to date. Why? Is it just because they're decent value, packed with goodies like RFs and alt-art cards? Yes. But it also, for me, is that you don't have to buy them. I think you just want to.
A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando.
Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again. A fabulous cast checking in here from my hotel room in Queenstown, New Zealand. Absolutely freaking gorgeous, gorgeous place, town, everything about it. The lake is gorgeous and all that. But yes, today I want to talk about these heavy hitter precon decks. Now, the Celebrational has wrapped up. Actually, day 2 of the calling has wrapped up. But during the Celebrational, I got the chance to play with 3 of these. So one of the event rounds that we did during the Celebrational was precon battles. And during it was 3 rounds, and each round you would get a new precon and you'd play it against someone else. They made sure that it was pseudo-random. They made sure that there was no mirrors, and you also got a different class each round. So I have 1 Brute, 1 Guardian, and 1 Warrior. Now, the 3 that I ended up with were Rhinar, Victor Goldmane, and then Kassai was my round 3. Actually, Victor was my round 1, then Rhinar, then Kassai. That's neither here nor there. All right. But what I want to talk about is why I'm really impressed with these products for kind of a push-pull reason. First, I think there's really good value in these as compared to some of the others that we've seen in the past. They did bring back, I'll throw it up, they did bring back the Rainbow Foil Heroes, which is a big draw to these. It's very, some of the ones we'd seen for like History Pack and stuff. I think maybe even Outsiders, you didn't get the RF Hero in there. Now you get that again. But then they added something else, which is the extended art, like exactly, for example, here in Rhinar, you get the Bonebreaker Bellow, right? So you have these extended art kind of staple cards. And I think that that's a really smart move, and they look really good. But the part I love about it is, as opposed to some of the decks we've seen in the past, you as a player, if you don't want them, you don't need the extras, this is not a product that you have to go out and buy. And that's why I absolutely love this product, is because there's really good value in it. There's stuff for you if you want to buy it and have fun with it, plus you get some extras for buying it. But you don't have to as a player, right? Throw that back to like the Monarch Blitz decks we saw, where you had the mentors in there, and it was almost like, yeah, I kind of need to buy this, right? Now, maybe not for each mentor, granted, right? Now looking in the Wayback Machine, maybe we didn't need to do that. But at the time, it felt like as a player, if you wanted to have everything, you needed to go buy it. And that's why I really like this. It's really good for you, right? But you don't have to. And I absolutely love the balance they struck there. So that's my overall take on why I really like these products, right? Are they if you actually go and do the math on what everything sells for, I don't really know. It doesn't really matter like what the mentors are and all that, right? In terms of, are they the best value decks? I don't know, right? In terms of actual monetary value to rip and sell. But if you're someone who wants to pick up, who likes the precons, these are great value, right? That's my takeaway here. All right, another thing I was a huge fan of is this tips and tricks card. I don't believe these are completely new, but they, I like the stars on there with the difficulty level. The tips and tricks actually really helped me with Victor specifically, because I had no idea going in other than to just try and play the fatigue angle. So I really appreciated that as well. The Rhinar one's pretty cool. I actually did really well with the Rhinar deck. I actually really liked the Rhinar deck, which is, surprising. As many of you know, I'm not a brute player. Okay, so what I want to do for the rest of this is share my learnings on how the different decks play, what the best ones are, and all that. If you are maybe not looking to go buy all 6, maybe not looking to buy the full box, which ones to go out, which ones interest you. I mean, the first thing is, remember, rule of cool, right? That's what we live by here. If you want to play a hero, you want to have that hero, go buy it, right? They're all fine. They're all really well matched into each other in terms of playing each other. So I think that works. All right. So the one I want to start off on first is the Rhinar deck, throwing up the Flesh and Blood, kind of stock image there. So this one, I really had a lot of fun. I could see the play line. When I sat down, I could see the play line with this deck immediately after looking through it, right? So Rhinar has one claw, and then he has the mace. Okay, so what you can do, the easy play line there is to Bonebreaker Bellow, lets you chuck a 6, right, which gets you the Intimidate, and then you would come in on the claw with Go Again and +5 for 3, depending on which Bonebreaker. And then you would be able to then pitch to the mace to come in for 3+1, right? That's a pretty big turn in a Precon deck. And you have 6 Bonebreaker Bellows in there. Now, granted, not all at 5, but that's a pretty repeatable play. Granted, it's a lot of cards in your hand to make that happen, right? It's always a 4-card hand in order to make that happen. But, you can try and arsenal your Bonebreakers and set it up, maybe save yourself a little there, but you're still going to have 5 pitch on the turn you want to pull that off, right? Plus the 6 to discard. Okay, but that was a pretty straightforward play I could see, and then, of course, there's the one that they recommend on the Tips and Tricks card as well. But I had a lot of fun with this deck. It was very straightforward, and, being able to intimidate, again, a lot of times in these Precon versus Precon type things, you end up going to fatigue or close to it. And I felt like that was not going to be an issue with the Rhinar deck because of the Intimidate and the big attacks coming. So that was my takeaway. I did win my game with that one. Good deck. Now Kayo next up, you can see him over here. Agile Windup is the EA art in this one. Now Agile Windup, as you recall, you can, as an instant, you can chuck it to create a token. Okay. Now, what's cool about this is when you do that with Kayo, you create a token as well, right? So that's pretty cool. Now, I do want to, remember, you're not getting the Intimidates, right? We're just talking about Rhinar and the Intimidates. Remember, Kayo's different hero. You don't get that here. But Kayo really works off of his Might tokens. I personally think Kayo's probably the best of the 6 decks because his ability to work off of 5s effectively, he doesn't lose a lot of clashes, like at all. Which, when some of the other decks, that's like the Victor deck, that's kind of their thing, is to clash. It makes it very hard or makes it very difficult for those decks. And the KO deck can just put out damage, right? It has the, the Everfest ones in there, Wild Ride, and all that. So you can come through and just do your thing, you discard, you make a Might token for stuff on the back. Remember, you'd only ask to be a 5. He has a lot of power in his deck. Okay, it's a very, very good deck. It's also a very straightforward deck to play. I played against this one twice. I never did get to play it myself, but the deck's very good. All right, next up we have moving into Betsy. Now, Betsy is a very interesting hero because she's very strong as long as she can stay in front, right? As long as she can wager and be able to do her thing, which in general requires 2 pitch cards, right? Because it's going to, not in general, pretty much all the time in these decks, is going to require 2 pitch cards. There are times where you can get Vigor out and kind of do some things, but by and large, if you're going to do it, it's going to require a full hand. So Betsy, by and large, needs to be in front in order to overpower. Remember, overpower is very strong in these decks because you're very limited on what you can play. Now, the weakness Betsy has is that her deck is chock full of 2 blocks, right? If you go through and you look at the set, a lot of the most of the dual class cards are 2. Actually, I think all of the dual class cards are 2. It's probably not entirely true, but the vast majority are 2. And a lot of the wager cards are dual class cards to functionally work in the set. So she needs that. She has a lot of 2 blocks in her deck, right? So she very much needs to stay in front. And one of the drawbacks of her mechanic is, in order to have the cards with which to do it, if you're not kill shotting, your opponent can only block 1 card. They take damage, but then they come back at you with a big hand, and you also need a big hand. So very much a push-pull there, and you really need to stay in front with Betsy. And if she goes in game with all those 2 drops, it can be very, very difficult. Right? That was at least within my experience. Right, next up is Victor. So this is a deck that I did have a chance to play. This was my first round. Now he has an advantage, so he does come with the Miller's Grindstone is in this deck, right? Which is a big deal because it's the breakpoint attack. But as you recall, if you miss, you get -1s. So in my game playing it, I did end up with -2. It was because I was playing against Kano, and I just could not win the clashes. But if you can, and the advice card, you can really clearly see there, I'll throw that up. It says, hey, don't do this till later in the game where you can make sure that you're going to win your clashes, which is completely fair. The vast majority of the Victor games that I saw during the celebrational, the vast majority of them where Victor won did go to fatigue, right? And I think that's inherently kind of, for the most part, how the deck is designed to work, is kind of throw like a 3/7 or a 2/6 or whatever it might be, kind of weaken them up a little bit, make sure you have what you need, and then just start coming at the end for damage. Remember, it's only 20 health. It doesn't take too many 4 swings to get them to a spot, and then kind of see how many cards they've got left. And Victor defends relatively well, as compared to Betsy. He doesn't have a lot of those wager stuff. It's more clash type stuff, which has block. I think he might be the only one that has block cards in there, because there's a lot of block cards that when you do it, you clash. So you can see where it's going. Okay, so the Victor deck, again, if you want to play a little slower, more control-y, I think that's the deck for you. All right, moving on to the Kassai deck. So this is also the one I played my round 3. Now, I openly admit here, I didn't really quite see the line of play until maybe about halfway through the deck. Now, they do have the tips and tricks there, to be fair. I just didn't quite see it as well. So she comes with the Cintauri Saber, as well as the other Saber that it's like Hot Streak, to where if it's blocked, gets go again. There are a lot of, in retrospect of my game, which I ended up losing to Kelvin we were at 1-1, both basically out of cards. He was KO, and he just came over the top, right? Because that's what KO does. So, but looking back in retrospect, I misplayed a lot, because I actually I had a lot of single swing turns where I could have actually led with the Hot Streak instead of Cintauri Saber, right? Cintauri Saber was my comfort because it's been out. You know that if they block it goes to 1. A lot of times he would, block it with 1 card or whatever that was a 3, so it didn't matter if it was pumped or whatever, and no loss to him. But if I had come with the Hot Streak, threatening to go again for the second attack, that was where I messed up, right? But so I'm sure that once you get reps with this, I think you'll have a lot better luck than I did. Draw Swords is in there. Draw Swords is a pretty good card, at least in limited in this set. We've seen not only just from the celebrational and doing this, but also from the calling this, from the world premiere, and then from the calling. We've seen that card doing some work. So I do think that that's a good EA to probably have and go look at. And then again, I'll throw it up one more time. I think that the Kassai young Kassai Rainbow Foil, I think, is absolutely freaking gorgeous. So I'm very happy to have that one. All right, last up is Olympia. Now, Olympia is an interesting deck to a certain extent, not as bad as the Betsy deck, but to a certain extent also suffers from the lots of 2 blocks issue, because needs to wager for his thing, right? So you do have that present to a certain extent. Does, however, have the multi-attack weapon potential, right? And, he's a warrior, so again, some 2 blocks, not as many as Betsy, but can block okay. You do have a harder time with Olympia making, I think, as much gold as you want to be able to get the huge card advantage that we've seen maybe him gain in like Constructed or something like that, or even maybe in the Sealed that we've seen in terms of gaining the amount of gold. That was at least what I saw. By and large, I didn't see Olympia have a ton of success in, again, the Precon battles. But I think this is another one that as folks start to understand really how to stack that go. I mean, I think we're beginning to understand now really how Olympia works. When he first dropped, I think a lot of us, once we saw the full card pool, we're like, oh, I don't really understand what Olympia does. But now that we've seen some of the smart kids start playing them, I think we're starting to really get that together. and starting to unlock that. So that's a deck that I'm looking forward to. I'm going to pick this. I want to pick this one and KO up myself, and I'll move us to the next bullet, right? These are going to be available, supposedly, these are going to be available on pre-release weekend for us to pick up, right? Which is next weekend, right? Is that right? Yes. Next weekend, as of when I'm shooting this, will be pre-release weekend. And then it'll be release weekend. So, but yeah, so you can, if you want, if they're at your store in time, pick them up on pre-release weekend, which is really cool. So I'm going to be picking up at least this one and the KO one. The Betsy one I don't have, but I don't think I need that one. But we'll see. We'll see. If I end up playing her in Blitz, then maybe I'll want the RF. But either way, I'm really impressed with these products. I think they play relatively well into each other. Again, there's always a hierarchy, which we talked about here. I do think KO is the best one. Probably put Betsy and Olympia on the lower end. But the Olympias with an asterisk of, I think maybe now that I've seen stuff, maybe I need to go back and give that a shot. But either way, I just wanted to share not only my excitement about the product itself, but kind of a rundown and the fact that, it's out this weekend. Maybe pick up a couple and play them. I do think the precon format, I do think these precons play really well into each other, right? So maybe pick them up, sit down with your buddies at the table after the pre-release or whatever. But anyway, that'll do it for me today. Let me know what you think. I've put up pictures and stuff that I've taken through the course of this, so hopefully that helps to enhance the experience or at least share what I can with this. So anyway, enjoy, folks. Thanks for watching, and go Commando.